Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. Today's album review is on the Other Two album from 1993 called The Other Two and You. This, for those that don't know, The Other Two and You, this was Stephen Morris, the drummer for New Order, and Jillian Gilbert, his wife, who was also in New Order, keyboardist. This album was produced by Stephen Hague, or is it Hogg? Always it's Hague. But I used to have this on cassette when it came out, and then later got this CD because I don't know whatever happened to my cassette. But obviously, back in like 91, 92, 93, the New Order was struggling to get along, and so a lot of the members sort of did other projects. There was this one. Obviously Bernard Sumner went on to electronic and did some stuff there. Peter Hook did an album or two. I think maybe at least one album with the band Monaco, and just trying other things. And obviously, they Stephen Morris and Jillian were doing a lot of some soundtrack work at the time and doing a lot of music together. So I think, probably did so much music together that they decided they had enough to actually put out an album. And this album didn't get a lot of notice in America. It had a couple singles, in UK, and the album was fairly well received. Not any tremendous chart success or anything like that, but I think it's kind of a underappreciated album in many respects. I think to people who may like New Order and don't know this album, or maybe don't appreciate this album, but I think this album has a lot of good moments on it, and it's quite catchy. And I think if you take a lot of the New Order, those projects we talked about, electronic, this album, Monaco, whatever you like about the New Order that did come out on Republic and around that time. If you take all the parts that you like about the different ones, you still have, some of, New Order stuff that you like in those years. I think a lot of times people just think, oh, Republic was bad or wasn't great, or wasn't that good. And so New Order sucked in '93, and so there's nothing worth checking out basically in the early '90s by anything New Order. But when you think about all the releases around it, especially with electronic, you have a lot of music to go to, and it sort of feels like an extension of New Order, and so you still kind of appreciate the band during those years, and I certainly did, and I didn't think. I did review Republic. I can't remember the score that I gave it. Probably somewhere around like 68 to 73 or somewhere around the being a good album to a low score of being very good. Somewhere in that range, 68 to like 75. I would think. I don't think I put it higher than 73 or 74. But I don't think it's a horrible album. I think there's some opportunities on it for sure. But especially when you compare it to like Technique, which is one of my favorite New Order albums, and I just reviewed Electronic on my channel a couple days ago, and I gave it a huge review, 87 out of 100. I love that album, and so there's a lot of good New Order related music, even though it's not under the name New Order. And I think one of the best ones besides Electronic is this album here. There's 10 songs on here. There was originally 9 songs, and then there was a bonus track on there. And I did the I did the my record fell down. So I reviewed the entire 10 album one versus the 9. There's some really good songs on here. My favorites being Selfish, the single, Feel This Love, Tasty Fish, and Spirit Level. Those are my 4 favorite. It's a good balance of dance music on here. and synthwave or synth pop, new wave, whatever you want to call it. It's fairly hip for 1993 too. Like there's four instrumentals on here, and they're kind of verging on techno, and I think they still hold their own for the most part, and they don't sound overly dated for being 1992 93. And I think that's a that's an achievement because I think of like "Very" by Pet Shop Boys in 1993. Some of those songs are because they're so fast and they're verging on that using acid lines and being a little bit trancy and stuff like that. They can kind of be kind of dated, and I feel like this album it's not as dated. It's not as dated. This album reminds me a lot of, I don't know if it's just the color of the album and then the time, but it also sort of reminds me of Human League's 1995 album Octopus, because Octopus has some instrumentals on there like "Is John Cleese Funny," and I always kind of get those two albums. I think are underrated around the same couple years, and they're just same kind of color, same green, and so I always kind of get those two tied together in my head as far as albums that are underrated from more popular new wave '80s artists. Um, Jillian has a really good voice, really good poppy kind of dance voice. It's like you kind of listen to it and you're like, I wonder why she didn't sing in New Order. Like, was there any song that she ever sang in New Order? Like I'm trying to. I mean, I don't pay attention a lot to backing vocals a lot, but did she sing backing vocals? And if so, like which tracks from New Order? But I think she has a really nice voice. I'm kind of surprised that she never was like a lead in a song. Like she clearly did it here on this album and did a really good job. In some ways, this album sort of sounds like an electronic album too. In some ways, it and it also really kind of makes you wonder how much Jillian and Steven contributed to the success and the songs of New Order, right? Like I think they're very underrated. After listening to this album and then you kind of really like think about it, they're obviously very respectful and kind of quiet people compared to Peter Hook and Bernard and the issues that they've had. So it is kind of, I'm not surprised that they're not like, you know, I did this on this song and I should be rewarded like this. And, they seem to be very content, happy people. And, and, and maybe that's why they're married, because they are on that same temperament to where they're not combative, like, or using drugs and getting drunk and stuff like that, like Bernard Sumner was and Peter Hook was, because they were arguing so much. But then, more importantly, when you think about the music of New Order, right? They did great dance music, right? They did great guitar work, and so when you think of the guitar songs, yeah, you think of like Bernard Sumner doing the guitar riff and Peter Hook doing the bass the and then Jillian and Steven sort of filling in, right, and being the supportive rhythm section, right? But then you think of like, so that's their importance is very equal in that, in my respect, in my view of New Order as a band. But then when you think about it, you're like, okay, well, New Order is really known as a dance version of Joy Division in a way, and they have a lot of great dance songs. So what's more important, Bernard's riffs, or even the vocals? The vocals are certainly important on the bigger hits, but when you think of like what New Order is known for, Blue Monday, the rhythms on all their songs, all their dance versions, especially like Perfect Kiss or Thieves Like Us or Shell Shock or um, Touched by the Hand of God, or you know they're all rhythm based, right? So when you think about like what New Order's done, like I think in some ways their contributions to the songs are kind of pretty underrated. Because it seems like Peter Hook and Bernard get all the success. I mean, how many people know Gillian Gilbert's and Stephen Morris's name? When even to people that like New Order, a lot of people don't even know their names. Um, I think in some ways what they did for New Order is kind of not only underrated, but just kind of we don't know the full impact that they did when creating the songs. It's just kind of, oh, it's New Order. And then, of course, everybody gives the lead singer the credit and maybe the more vocal one, Peter Hook. But Jillian and Steven, I mean, they did the rhythm section and the keyboards for these songs. Not for these songs, of course, but for a lot of the New Order songs. So, how important were they to New Order? I think you could make the argument that they were more important. It's interesting to think about. But this is certainly a good dance album and a good secondary New Order album. Like, if you like New Order, you should like this album. Um, there's 10 songs on here. Tasty Fish was a single. There was 2 singles on this album. Um, and yeah, Tasty Fish was one of them. Very catchy, good bass line. It's kind of a happy song. Definitely a happy song, but very catchy, good song. 3.5 stars. The Greatest Thing, 3 stars. The keyboards and the chorus kind of make this song really good atmosphere as well. Really nice second track after a really kind of poppy dance song. To go to this track kind of adds the deepness. And then, so I give that 3 stars. And then into the best song on the album, which is one of the singles, Selfish. Um, which I'm bummed that I picked it out and I don't have the CD in here, which I'm wondering where it is. Um, Probably in another CD holder. Um, but 4 stars for Selfish. Very catchy. Chorus is great. It flows really well. It's like a great New Order song, except a female sung it. It's kind of like almost as good as Regret in some ways. I think it's a song that you sing and it gets in your head, and I find it really a really great dance pop song. 4 stars. Moving on, 4th track. It's okay. It's a good track. It's the song always. The song I used to always get fast forwarded when I had the cassette. I would always kind of fast forward this one. It was just kind of like, just kind of a. It's almost like an instrumental interlude in a way. Or no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of a different track. This one's kind of a more. It's kind of vocal on it, but it's a little bit more moody, but it just doesn't have um, the catchiness of the previous 3 tracks. But it's okay. I give it 2 stars. 9th Configuration is the instrumental I was thinking about. Cool techno track. 808 Bells on here is great. A little bit darker, which is cool. 2 3/4 stars. Feel This Love. I think if there would have been a 3rd single, this would have been it. This is a really strong track. I really like Feel This Love. It's got this really cool vocal effect on it that not a lot of, but some New Order songs sort of used. I can't pinpoint exactly what. I'm sure there's a lot of remixes that did. A lot of people use this kind of effect. Not, I would say a lot of people, but when I hear it, I think of there's got to be some other moments in other tracks, like by Pet Shop Boys and New Order and Electronic, that sort of did this, where it sort of has her vocal repeated in an effect way. It's really cool. It's very catchy. It's almost hard to explain, but if you feel this love and you hear the chorus and you hear how she sings it, and there's like a la 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 la, and it just kind of goes with the turns into sort of like a melody. It's really cool. 3 3/4 stars. Spirit Level, another cool instrumental, kind of a little bit deeper, a little bit darker. 3 1/4 stars. Night Voice, track number 8. It's kind of a soundtrack interlude, so it sort of sounds like It's okay. I give it 2 stars. Innocence, I give it 2.5 stars. And then the last track, called "Loved It," is an instrumental. Towards the end of the song, the vocal sample used in it is actually the same vocal sample in the World in Motion remixes. And going in the air. I don't know what that's from, but it's I just know it from the World in Motion remixes, or maybe it's in the original track too, but it's sort of deep down in the track. But yeah, just as soon as I heard it, I remember. Oh yeah, that was in World of My Eyes. But good ending to the album. 3 stars. Another instrumental. Yeah, there's 4 instrumentals on here. Um, I have it 29.75 stars divided by 10 songs, so 2.97. So that kind of brings it to be about a 68 out of 100. I think that correlates really good to the album score. I don't feel need to really give it any additional points or knock it for anything. When I think of the opportunities of the album, maybe the album runs out of steam a little bit, runs out of ideas because there's 4 instrumentals on here. Sort of lacks a ballad on here, or maybe some depth on the album. But the lyrics can be kind of cheesy a little bit, but they're kind of carefree, and I think they go well with Jillian singing. It's nothing super deep on here lyrically, or but it's just fun, catchy kind of dance music from the early '90s, and I think it's successful in that retrospect. 68 out of 100. I think it's an underrated album in a lot of ways. I can't really say it's a very good album. It's really close. I think if there was maybe 2 instrumentals instead of 4, I think it could, and the songs were still good. I think it could push that level. But when you think about it, there's only 5 to 6. Uh, 5 to 6. Well, actually, one, two, three. I'll count them. 4 tracks that aren't instrumental that are above very good in my eyes out of 10. So I can't really say the album's very good as well because the instrumentals aren't really. I would say the 4 instrumentals average out to be about the same score as the album, so they don't necessarily help the album get to a higher level. And if you factor in that they are instrumentals, it's not that that brings down the level of the score, but it doesn't help um, the album score and help the album be even better because they're just good instrumentals. I think that in some ways it has to be a fantastic instrumental to sort of help an album. Like if I have all the tracks with vocals 3 stars, and then there's two there's two instrumentals that are 3 stars. I don't think that's uh, helping the album, or in fact, it's sort of hurting a little bit because I tend to like instrumentals a lot. So I think they're easier to get the score wrong, if you know what I'm saying, because they don't really do too much sometimes. Like especially, or they're not that. Sometimes they're not that well thought out, and they're just kind of like a 2 minute interlude track. So you're like, oh, I really like that. I'll give it a 3 star. And I'm like, well, that's not the same level as like a 3 star track that's has vocals and chorus and everything like that. I'm gonna rate that a little bit harder. So if that gets to 3 stars, I think that's probably better than a 3 star instrumental in my opinion. Because I'm really, I think I'm skewed a lot and probably biased a little bit to instrumentals. So if I give a instrumental a 4 stars, somebody might think that's an awesome instrumental, but sometimes I can think that's a very good instrumental, and maybe not on that level as what a song is to get to that level. Just because I like instrumental music and electronic music more, that might be a. I'm just saying that might be a a bias that I have towards instrumental music. Because sometimes vocals hurt tracks for me. A lot of the music I listen to that has words, I listen to them because they do have a good voice. But there's a lot of music out there that I can't get past the voice. So it's just like, and if they're not a good instrumental, then I'm really not going to listen to them. So it's the voice is very important to music, of course. It's like an instrumental, but if you're going to be talking and singing over a whole song, it's gonna be the lead of the song, and you're talking about the main instrument, the voice being the most pronounced piece of a song. If that voice doesn't work with you well and doesn't sit well with the other music, especially tone wise, it's not going to make for a enjoyable experience in my opinion. But yeah, 68 out of 100, a really strong album. I think very underrated. If you like New Order, check out the other two and You album from 1993. All right, thanks a lot.